Back in December 2022, I decided to do my very first manga tournament. I pitted 8 different manga series against one another in order to pick an ultimate winner, because I wanted to read a manga series alongside One Piece, which, for context, I started reading for the first time only about 4 or 5 months ago, and I've already fallen so head over heels in love with it that I wanted to continue my manga journey. In whichever series won the manga tournament, it would be the series that I would do a deep dive review on. But I ended up reading 8 different volume 1s of different mangas, and there was one clear winner at the end of the day, and that was Berserk by Kentaro Miura. Now, I read a different volume in the manga tournament. I read this little thing here, and I had every intention of just collecting the singles, but then I got a lot of comments saying that the deluxe editions are way better to read, and obviously they are bigger, they are better, and I ended up buying all 11 deluxe editions at once off eBay, just like at once, and I just knew I was going to be in it for the long haul, and I loved volume 1, so I knew that I would love the rest of the series. I mean, I've got to. I'm the kind of person who would buy a whole series just based off the first book. I really would. That is kind of a problem though. I should probably stop doing that. So technically I have read the first volume. However, it was more of a kind of quick little read, and I wasn't doing any kind of deep analysis on it. I wasn't really like paying too much close attention to what I usually do, because it was just for a manga tournament, and I had 7 other different volume 1s to read in the same video. So I feel like diving into the first volume of Berserk through the deluxe edition will be like reading it for the first time, and I've never read past volume 1, and this will be my first time reading Berserk properly, okay? This isn't clickbait. This is not clickbait. If you are familiar with my One Piece reviews, you will know that I go chapter by chapter, and that does produce quite a lot of long videos. So I anticipate a lot of future Berserk videos getting to that extreme length as well. So I hope you don't mind if you're a Berserk fan, because I do like going chapter by chapter. I like to set it out as a kind of reading vlog. I read one chapter, I talk to you about that chapter, analyze it, theorize about things, and then move on to the next chapter, talk about that, and so on and so forth. That is my kind of style of reading manga. I love doing that because it means that everything gets kept in here. I'm great at forgetting things, but if I talk through it and I analyze things or dissect things a lot more closely, then I will definitely remember a lot more. So that is my style of reading. I hope you don't mind. Maybe give this video a try, and if you like the review style, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. In this video, I will be reading the entire Black Swordsman arc, which is the very first arc of Berserk, and it covers chapters 1 through 8 of the manga. So that is quite nice and short. I feel like we will probably fly through it. Berserk is written by Kentaro Miura, and unfortunately he did pass away in 2021, and I had no idea about that when I read this for the manga tournament and it won. So like that makes me like so gutted to find out about that after the fact, but hopefully I can honor him. Hopefully I can review Berserk and give it the justice it deserves. Yeah, I did absolutely love what I read so far, so I have every faith that I will be a huge Berserk fanboy by the end of this video. So yeah, this will be filled with spoilers for the entire arc. I will ask that if you have read beyond this arc, please don't leave any spoilers for any future arcs down in the comments. I am reading through Berserk for the very first time, so I have no idea what's going to happen after this arc. So what I remember from volume 1 is that we followed a guy called Guts, and he is the Black Swordsman. He has a huge sword, and I also remember the very first panel of Berserk, because I was like, I was not expecting this as I opened the bloody book. Guts does have this mark on him that attracts demons, and he is constantly fighting for his life. He is out for revenge against someone. I didn't get far enough to find out what this revenge was. Guts was a bit of a dick, not gonna lie, but I feel like he has a lot of trauma. I feel like he's hiding a lot of stuff that I need to uncover, and he probably needs a lot of therapy, and I'm ready to give it to him. I'm no therapist, but I'm here to listen. But that's pretty much all I took from this. The reason this won the manga tournament was because I absolutely adored the illustration style. I loved the vibe of this setting. I loved the atmosphere. I loved how swords and sorcery-esque it felt and grim. Just what I needed at the time. So I hope that I still feel in the mood for dark stuff. I really do. But it had some fantastic scenes that I remember, but I will talk about those scenes in depth and in detail when I get to those moments, and I'm so excited to actually talk about those moments. I had to briefly spoiler-free mention them in my manga tournament, but I'm so happy that I will be able to just share everything and totally do this spoiler-filled. So yeah, that's it, I think, for the intro. So yeah, I'm just gonna get straight into reading and hope that it doesn't get too berserk. Okay, so finished the first chapter of Berserk, and it reminded me exactly why this series won my manga tournament. So much came back to me, but there were so many little details that I had totally forgotten about. I definitely did not forget how the actual chapter started. The entire series starts with Guts having sex with the demon. He might have known before going into it, because yeah, the demon's like, ha, trapped you, and he's like, I think you're the one that's trapped, bitch, and then kills her. It's just such an interesting start to the series. I've never read anything that starts in that way before. It's great. And seeing Guts' bare ass before anything else, I ain't complaining. But yes, Guts then does end up going into the nearby village, and I didn't realise this the first time I ever read the volume, but there is actually carriages or carts with women and children inside. Now, I must have totally breezed past that when I first read this last month. And it ties to, I think he's called the Baron, or something like that. He was only ever referred to once by name, and that was when one of his lackeys says, yes, Baron. So I think the main villain, the big bad, is called Baron, I think. I'm sure I'll learn a lot more about them by the end of this arc. But yeah, these women and children are getting carted off to the Baron, and as we find out through a lot of fighting that Guts does, he ends up saving this little elf thing called Puck. And I remember liking Puck because he's a total juxtaposition to Guts. And Guts is very broody, and he's definitely gone through something, because the way he reacts when people touch him is, like, I guess not normal. He seems to be very protective of himself, and yeah, it was like really interesting to see how when Puck was offering help, Guts would just be like, get off me, do not touch me. I've got maybe a theory of why he is very icky about people touching him, but I'm going to keep that theory to myself for now, just in case I'm totally wrong. But anyway, yes, Guts does end up saving Puck, but with Guts, I don't think he saves him purposefully. He sees this group of men and realizes that they work for the Baron, and he decides to dispatch them and give one of them a message for them to take back to, what was the castle called again? Was it Coca Castle? That's probably the worst pronunciation ever. But yeah, Puck is tied up and they're kind of torturing him. And this is when Guts comes into Puck's story. But I think Guts is literally just like, I want to kill these men because they work for this bastard. I don't think Guts was intentionally saving Puck, because Guts does look down on a lot of people. He does seem to be the kind of person who, well, I guess judges, he does say anyone who dies because they get caught up in someone else's fight is a small fry who doesn't have the strength to survive in the first place. So yeah, the way he sees other people are just like little ants, and if they die, they die. He is on a mission right now. He is on a mission, I guess, against the Baron, and we find that out quite slowly through the chapter. I love the slow build of that, because on the outside it just seems like a random series of events, a random series of violent events that happen at once, but actually it's very connected, it's very purposeful, and he wants the Baron to know that the Black Swordsman has come. And the fact that we are seeing the strength and the brutality of the Black Swordsman through this chapter, I'm scared. I'm scared of him. I'm rooting for him, but I'm scared of him at the same time. The way that he can use his huge slab of a sword to cut someone in half without blinking an eye, which he's only really got one good eye. The other one seems to be closed. And he also has an arm that I think is made of steel or something. He's made his arm into a weapon, which is interesting. I can't wait to find out more about how that happened. But Guts is captured by the mayor and his men, and the mayor comes to see him. Guts knows that the mayor is giving the Baron these women and children, sacrificing them so that the entire town can sort of survive. But Guts can see through the mayor and be like, you're just protecting yourself, really. So this is where, like, this whole grey area comes into it with Guts, because, like, is he actually trying to help and make a difference? Because he does see what's wrong in this world. And is he actually going to, like, actively try and fight against that for other people? Or is he literally just out for himself, out for his own revenge, and if people die, you know? That's the game. That's apparently the game in Guts' mind. It'll be really interesting to find out exactly how Guts will progress in his way of thinking. And this Baron person honestly does give me chills. He eats people, like, he's eaten an ear here. Like, that's his teeth. He's got, like, these really sharp, jagged teeth, and he's eaten, well, actually it looks like steak with a side of ears, but the steak is most likely human flesh, probably from the women and children that were sacrificed from the mayor. So when the mayor comes to see him, he ends up flicking an ear at the mayor. An ear at the mayor. That's beautiful, actually. That's quite poetic. He looks a little bit like the Green Goblin from Spider-Man, a little bit. So that's cool. But he is a cannibal, and he seems to be a sworn enemy of the Black Swordsman aka Guts. But Puck does help Guts escape from the mayor's dungeon, which was where we saw more of like Guts' reaction to being touched. He does mention the brand, but he doesn't quite explain it. Like, that's the thing with this volume. I don't think a whole lot is explained, but I guess that feels natural to the world. Like, Guts as a character doesn't feel like explaining himself or explaining his situation to Puck. Like, why should he, you know? It's not like they're friends, even though Puck is hanging around Guts as if he is, almost like a Tinkerbell kind of character. But Guts' motivation is that he wants to find the Baron and kill him. I don't care about anything else. So that is his sworn goal. And I already feel like I'm invested in this goal. I want him to win. I want him to succeed. And with Puck feeling all of the emotions that Guts feels, this is when I started to feel like, okay, I don't think Guts is just a prick for the sake of being a prick. Puck can feel, well, he says, is it rage? No, it's not just that. It's rage, sadness, and fear. It's all mixed together, so dark, and there's something even deeper than that. And that's why I'm thinking Guts has probably been through something very traumatic, something that's really changed him as a person. And I want to try and give him the benefit of the doubt, even though he's acting like such an arsehole. There's something there, something happened to him that really traumatized him, and Puck can feel it, and it's making Puck feel so awful. I can only imagine what it is. I have a theory, but I don't really want to say it out loud. I'll say it. I think maybe Guts was probably, especially since he won't let people touch him, maybe he was sexually assaulted, potentially either by the Baron or by the Baron's men or something, because it feels like that is why he just can't handle anybody touching him. One of my favourite moments from volume 1 kind of happened in the first chapter, and that's when we have this sort of snake guy come. He's apparently one of the apostles? Yeah, I believe that's what he's called. This huge snake monster, and I believe there are way more than this, especially since the brand that Guts has attracts these kinds of demons. But the fact that this snake monster has this head in its mouth, like, I love the designs of these chilling creatures, the designs of these characters. It's just the way that the shadows are, the way that it seems like all pencil, and I don't know, it feels different, it feels grim, it feels amazing, terrifying though. It's just odd. It looks so odd. It looks like something from like Dark Souls or Demon Souls or whatever it's called. But Guts does end up hitting this apostle person thing, and the apostle, the snake man, says that mark is the brand of sacrifice. You are the God Hand. Where are the 5 members of the God Hand? This is what Guts asks. So this is his goal. 5 members of the God Hand and the Baron. Kill the Baron. That's what it feels like, just judging from the first chapter. I might be totally wrong. We will figure it out together. But yeah, honestly, like, it was a great action-packed first chapter. Nothing slowed down for a second. We got a really great sense of Guts as a character. We got introduced to Puck, which was awesome, because I really do feel like we need him, because he chats a lot more than Guts does. Guts is very quiet and internal, whereas Puck is very external. So it feels like Puck is our way of getting more of an insight into Guts, because Guts ain't going to reveal anything, really. And having a closed-off character like Guts is just so intriguing, and I just need to know more about his story, I really do. All in all, though, fantastic first chapter. Yeah, this chapter was the reason why Berserk won the manga tournament. I loved the scene with the reanimated skeletons. I loved it so much. It reminded me a little bit of like Black Cauldron-ish, just like the whole atmosphere of it and the kind of style. So yeah, in this chapter, Guts does come across a priest and his daughter, and they're traveling in a sort of carriage thing. And Guts initially says, don't offer me a ride, I have evil spirits following me, you'll just get in the way and stuff like that. And then the priest says, I have God on my side, it's fine. And then Guts is like, well, you know what do I care if they get hurt? So he ends up going in. He comes across Puck in the carriage, because earlier he does sort of brush Puck aside, and he was like, I don't want you following me, you're just a pest and stuff like that. Like, honestly, like, Guts is brutal. He is brutal. The way he talks to people is just so not nice. But I feel like it's part of the appeal of his character. Like, he isn't trying to beat around the bush, trying to accommodate other people's feelings. He knows what he needs to do. He has one job, one mission. Well, probably a few missions, actually. He's just like, you know what? I don't need to coddle anyone else. I'm just here to do me, you know? So while they're in this carriage, Guts falls asleep, and even in his nightmares, he is being chased by demons. And that brand he does explain in this chapter is the brand that summons demons, and he can't escape. So I'm so excited to see how he will overcome the brand, and if the brand will be something that he can get rid of, or if he's branded for life. Like, there is just no reversing it. I have no idea. So when he wakes up from this nightmare, there is an actual incubus that's there, and he realizes that there could be some like dead warriors around or something like that. So he leaves the carriage, and then, yeah, they're surrounded by these skeletons, and the daughter of the priest gets killed by getting a spear shot through her. And the first time I read that, I was shocked. I was like, wow, we've just met this girl. She seemed quite nice, and like that she's been snuffed out. And then as Guts is fighting all of these skeletons, Puck goes inside the carriage and sees that this daughter has beheaded her own dad, the priest. Like, she's come back to life as a sort of like scary demon thing. Although she looks exactly the same, she just has a sinister smile on her face. Yeah, she beheaded her own father, the priest, who said God was on his side, and she ends up like stabbing Guts, but Guts ends up bisecting her, which again is just awful. We just met these people. They were just going about their day, but Guts did say, look, you let him get hurt, and he was right. They ended up paying with their lives. It just adds to that whole world building of this, you know? Like, Guts can't really rely on anyone else because they will just be in danger. They will just get killed. And I feel like this is such a brutal way of sending that message to us as a reader. But I love the whole scene. This whole scene was the reason why this won the tournament. This is like so exciting and intense and dark and gory, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. Seeing the skeletons reanimated and try and fight Guts, and the amount of time and strength it takes for Guts to take them down, it's just overwhelming in a fantastic way. And this is the second chapter. This is just the second chapter of Berserk. I was floored. It really does show you that this entire series is brutal, and it's probably just going to get more brutal from here on out. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know what a Behelit is, but we end the chapter. This is like the last chapter I ever read of Berserk, and so after this I have no clue what's gonna happen, so I'm really excited to actually read a chapter I've not read before. But I actually forgot a lot about this chapter. It starts off quite gory. We have some guy who is like quite powerful in this village. He is getting a lot of people beheaded, and anybody who looks like a heretic will get executed. One of the people that works for him is a bit like, you know, we've executed quite a lot of people, you know, there's going to be like no one left. And he's like, don't care, anybody who looks like a spy or a heretic, kill them. So it's so brutal, and there are so many panels that I don't think I'm allowed to show because of how gory and brutal it is. Like, the amount of times I cringe at something happening, like, say for instance, Guts, when he comes and he has a fight with the soldiers, and he just like cut people in half a lot. He actually throws the head of somebody who had just been executed at the guy. He didn't have a name. This is the thing with Berserk as well. A lot of people, we don't really get their names, so I'm a little bit confused what to call them. This guy here. This guy. That head he's holding, he ends up squeezing it so that the eyes like bulge out and stuff. Honestly, you have to have a really strong stomach for this series, and it feels almost gratuitous, but at the same time it's establishing this world. Like, it is so cutthroat, it is brutal. I would not want to live here. Even though it does feel gratuitous, I think it's purposeful. I do think it's there for a reason. And when you've got a sword as big as Guts, I mean, the damage that's going to do, it's very accurate, in my opinion. But I totally forgot that when Guts gets away from the soldiers and Puck, they come across this man, and he looks quite scary. I'm not sure whether or not to trust him, but he looks like this. Again, he doesn't have a name. And he says about the Count. He says about how the Count had taken off some of his face and some parts of him and ate them. It does seem quite interesting. He says he's a has-been physician, and there are just random things in jars, skeletons. It's gruesome. It's visceral. It's perfectly gothic. And I love that atmosphere that it's built. And this was the part I was left on after the manga tournament, and I was like, I need to know what happens next. I need to know more, because I feel like we haven't really scratched the surface of the story yet, because it has just been set piece after set piece after set piece, a lot of violence, a lot of fighting, a lot of blood and gore, and the story has trickled into the action every now and then, so we're only getting little tastes of it, and we're not getting enough of it, which is great because it means I want to read on. It means I want to find out more about it, but I do want more names. I want people to be more clear about who they are, otherwise I'm just going to be confused for a lot of it. But no, honestly, like, this was the reason why I picked this one to read next. It's just amazing, and I love dark stuff like this, so yeah, even though I know I don't look it, but I'm eating this shit up. Okay, I am sort of following along, but again, I'm not really getting a whole lot of the world of the demons and like who the villains are and what they're called. So I said in the previous chapter, I think, that, well, actually the guy who we met who saved Guts, helped Guts, is called Vargas, and he used to be the castle physician. I think the Count is this like slug-like thing that the bad guy in the previous chapter who was pretty much beheading everyone, or at least getting everyone beheaded, he had like this demon thing in him, and he passed it along to one of the soldier god people that Guts had fought in the previous chapter, so that this god could seek vengeance on the Black Swordsman, on Guts. And this demon thing that entered him turned him into some kind of demon monstrosity himself. So he goes to fight Guts and loses, of course. The slug creature comes out. Vargas recognizes it as the creature that killed his wife and son. I feel like once I finish this arc, I'm going to read through online to see what other people have said about it, because I don't want any spoilers right now, so I don't want to look anything up. I'm too worried about getting spoiled. So just to try and get a grasp on the terminology, who's who, and stuff like that, I feel like I love this, don't get me wrong, I'm loving it, but I am just a little bit confused on the who's who. I felt so bad for Vargas because he helped Guts, and then he ends up losing his life in this chapter, which every single person who helps Guts loses their life. So whenever we meet a chapter in the future who helps him, I'm already writing them off. I'm going to try not to care about them. But I did feel bad for Vargas because he had different parts of him that were, you know, taken away from him, that were eaten, like his eye. I also think one of Guts' eyes was eaten because there was like this segment where Vargas was talking about his eye getting eaten, and then we have sort of a close-up on Guts' face, and then one of his eyes is closed. So maybe one of Guts' eyes has been eaten. But again, that hasn't really been explained yet, so I might be totally wrong. And also we have the Behelit, which is some kind of key. That's what Guts said. Guts has taken it, but it's some kind of key. It's something that summons demons as well. And Vargas stole it. He stole it from the castle, and it seems like all of the troubles, all of the stuff with the demons and the monsters and stuff happened around that same time. So it seems like this Behelit, I hope I'm saying it right, is the key to what's happening. And maybe the key to Guts' brand as well, to help him with this monster fighting and stuff. So again, I'm so intrigued. I'm almost getting nothing from this, but enough at the same time. Like, it's very vague, and it's getting told in such a natural way though that I can't fault it for not spelling everything out for me. I think I'm just dumb. This is the thing, like, I just need to pay more attention and just continue on reading. I am still loving the illustrations though, again, with the violence and the way that people die. Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything quite like it, in all honesty. And Guts does have the chance to save Vargas, but he chooses not to, because then he would have been overwhelmed by the soldiers and things. So he lets Vargas die, and he still says more dickish things. Honestly, it's just intriguing to see the way that Guts works. Especially since when Vargas does die, Guts is holding himself, like trying to keep himself composed almost. So it feels like there are barriers that are starting to break down a little bit. There are cracks showing in Guts's, you know, resolve and his steely persona. I love the fact that Puck tried to save Vargas as well. That was a really brave thing to do. Silly, because obviously he couldn't really help him, but brave. Goes to show you that Puck is somebody who will try and save someone, whereas Guts is like, I don't really care. Like, it's not going to help me. It's not going to progress my goal. So why should I? Although I do feel like Guts was a little bit torn at the end there in regards to Vargas. So, yeah. Yeah. It's so hard to describe my feelings on the series. Well, damn, we left the chapter on quite a cliffhanger, actually. And I feel like I can understand that the Count is the guy who was getting all of the heretics executed. That's the guy. That is the guy. And the demon that's inside him, he was just called Count by Vargas because he recognized him in that form. I get it now. The Count is the Count. That big guy who is executing the heretics. So in this one, we had Puck. He has been captured by the Count, and the Count gives Puck to his daughter, Theresia, and she seems like just a normal girl, and she even reveals that the Count used to be normal as well, you know, they used to be a family, and then 7 years before, everything changed when Theresia's mother, or the Count's wife, got sacrificed by a bunch of heretics. But that's I think the second or third time something's been referred to in the past, but exactly 7 years before. So it seems like something happened 7 years before that is detrimental to what's happening in the plot now. So that'll be really interesting to uncover, especially since we ended on a cliffhanger. But Guts is actually going after Puck. I think he's like saving Puck in a way because he knows that Puck was taken by the Count and he came to kind of save him. I mean, I don't know his reasoning behind it. I think secretly deep down that is the reason. But, you know, he's going to kill the Count. And he's killing the Count for Vargas. Like, he said to Vargas, even the decapitated head of his, I'm not going to avenge you, but I will kill him. He probably doesn't even know about Puck being there, actually, when I come to think of it. But he's still there. He's still there and he's going to unintentionally help save him. I just know it. I felt so bad for Theresia as well. You know, she's been trapped in this room for 7 years and she just wants to escape. Although now I feel like because at the end of this chapter, the doors to her bedroom are open and she actually leaves. She actually goes through. And now I'm thinking she'll end up accidentally dying. I feel like she's not going to last long. Every other character that we've met so far has not lasted long. So even though she's just a young girl, I feel like nobody is safe in this series at all. But it was nice to see the friendship between her and Puck. You know, he really identified with her being trapped in a cage. And it was like a really sweet moment. And she let him go. You know, even though he was a gift to her, she let him go as soon as they realized that Guts was in the castle. So yeah, Guts is fighting the Count. And what I love about the fights in this is that they are quite drawn out and they do last a long time. And it does show you just how brutal and exhausting it actually is. These fights are not easy. They don't just end in 2 pages. They're going on and on and on. And again, Guts is just immortal. He is immortal with his brand on him. And the fact that he is still going and still fighting shows his determination and strength. And I just can't believe the magnitude of power that he actually has within him. And he's just immortal, you know? So I find it so amazing the way that he is continuously fighting, his fighting style. I'm just in awe of him, really. And even the Count is like, I can end your suffering right now. Like, you are suffering. You are constantly being attacked by demons. You are branded. They are going to constantly keep coming after you. I can end your suffering right now. And no, Guts has this huge desire and huge will to live. He wants to continue living. And it's the same thing that Guts said to the snake person in chapter 1, I think it was, when he said, humans, mortals, have the will to live. We want to live. I find that really intense. I find that intense. The inside of the architecture of the castle as well that they're in right now as well is absolutely gorgeous. I cannot praise Miura's illustration style enough. It is absolutely stunning. What is going on? Another dimension? The Behelit started screaming. Yeah, it looks like it's opened its eyes and it's like crying blood and screaming. We get to this weird other dimension, stairs everywhere kind of thing. And it looks weird. I'm like, what's going on? Like, what's actually going on here? This is continuously surprising me, what's happening in this. But yeah, we do have the fight with the Count more in this one because that was what the cliffhanger was in the previous chapter. We have Guts still fighting the Count. Super scary, super intense. And then Theresia, I genuinely thought Guts was going to kill her. But he does like take her hostage for a little bit and then lets her go, and then he does overcome the Count. I don't think the Count is totally 100% dead yet. I feel like that's why the Behelit opened its eyes and has transported them to a different dimension, I think. Again, I don't really know what's going on. I'm just reading and I'm just vibing and I'm enjoying, but I just don't 100% know what's actually going on right now. That chapter was so intense, so bloody. Every chapter's been so fantastic so far. I don't need to fully understand it 100% for me to enjoy it, you know? Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to read anything. The amount of times I get confused at the slightest of things. There was a moment actually where it looked like Guts might have died, and it was so great to see Puck really stand up for him and like get in the Count's face and try to go off with the Behelit as well, or Behelit. You know what, I feel like, is there an anime version of the Black Swordsman arc? Like, has it been adapted into an anime? Because I might end up watching that after this, just so I can get a lot of the pronunciations correct, and maybe it will help me understand a little bit more of what's going on, because sometimes when there is a lot of action going on, I can't fully get or grasp everything that's happening in that moment because it happens so fast. But I think if there's an anime version of this arc, I might watch it after this. It might help. I have 2 chapters left. I have a Patreon movie night very soon. So I'll do the movie night. I'll read the last 2 chapters and potentially watch that. I will double check actually. You know what? I can check right now. I have the internet. I have Google. Oh, there was a 1997 anime adaptation of part of the Black Swordsman arc. No, I feel like the anime does something totally different. I don't think there is an actual adaptation of the actual story. Okay, it doesn't look like I'm watching any anime today on this, because I don't think it actually follows the Black Swordsman arc. So I'm just going to leave that. I'm sorry, I am taking this in, but I just feel like there are just a few blank spots for me to fully 100% understand what's going on, if you know what I mean. Well, that was such a twist. I didn't expect the Count to actually be the one to have sacrificed his own wife. His own wife, after telling his daughter, and pretty much telling everyone, I believe, that his wife, Teresia's mother, was sacrificed by heretics and pagans. And I thought that was why he was after all the heretics from before. But no, he gave himself up to, I mean, I don't really know what they are. I think one of them was called Griffith. And there are these, like, different people. There's, like, this woman with this weird hair, someone with this huge brain thing. Like, nobody's names were really given. And again, like, I guess I'm just used to One Piece, where every single character we meet, there's usually a panel with their name, full name and occupation. So, like, that's, like, one way of making it easier for me to know who is who. But in this, I've got nothing. I have nothing. But in this other dimension thing with all these stairs and stuff, we are shown a flashback of the past, and the fact that Teresia's mother herself was a heretic. She was... like, there was this huge statue of a god with a goat's head and this whole orgy thing happening around them. And it was intense. It was so intense. And poor Teresia had to see that happen. And the Count killed everyone except his wife. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't kill her, but he does sacrifice her to these people here. Even if I'm not 100% sure what's going on, I find it so interesting. There was also mention as well, because the people in this place, they noticed the brand on Guts and they say it was Femtor. I think it was Femtor who branded him. So I wonder if Femtor is the name of the Baron from chapter 1 who Guts is after. Is it Femtor? I mean, I'll probably find out soon enough anyway, but I just thought I would ask now. You know, just so I'm trying to piece together a lot of the stuff that's happening. At the end, we do have Guts. He's recovering and he's asking Puck for help. So who knows, maybe in the future, Guts and Puck will be a really good duo, even though Guts wants to do it solo. Guts doesn't need anyone to hold him back, kind of thing. I've been really enjoying it, don't get me wrong, I've been really enjoying it. I'm just worried that now maybe I'm a little bit over my head with this manga. I hope I'm not. I don't think I am. I feel like I will get this. Maybe it's just the storytelling style. It's like I'm not used to it not being as clear as I'm used to. So I think it might just be that. I'm sure I'll understand more as I go on. But yeah, only 1 chapter left. So we start off this chapter with a little bit of a flashback, I think. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what's reality anymore. But I think we have a flashback where Guts is on the battlefield with Griffith. You know, the guy, the person who was talking to the Count and saying, you have to sacrifice your daughter or you will go into the pits of hell, kind of thing. So I guess Guts knew Griffith from back then, maybe? I don't know, like, seriously, I am a little bit lost, and I still do need to go on YouTube and have a little look-see if anybody else has explained this arc better than I have. And you guys are probably thinking, wow, he can't review for shit. And you'd be right. But I don't think my confusion really detracted me from my overall enjoyment of this. The chapter that I just read, the last chapter of the Black Swordsman arc, was very intense. You know, we have the Count. I mean, you think he might end up sacrificing his daughter, but fortunately he doesn't. He does still have a heart in there somewhere. And it seems like hell opens up in front of us. And there's a really terrifying visual down here of like sort of like a sea of souls, or consciousness. It says a swirl of consciousness. That's terrifying. There's so many different like terrifying faces. And he does say that, yeah, this is hell. This is apparently hell. It's only a small portion, of course, but this is hell. And honestly, like, what this series has given me is that it feels like every single person is condemned to hell. Like, this is where people are all gonna end up. It's so desolate and so hopeless and so grey. Because we also saw Vargas. We saw Vargas from before who got beheaded. And he's in this sea of hell, sea of consciousness, or swirl of consciousness. He's there. And he seemed like a pretty decent guy, but he knew he was going to hell, and that's where he is. But it seems like nobody's safe from there. It even looks like Guts is going to end up in hell one day. And I'm like, where is the light? Where is the light in this series? There isn't really very much to go off with the lightness in this. But the Count does get taken away. He doesn't sacrifice his daughter, which was absolutely lovely. Even though he does have this like demon form and he has changed, he still can't give up his only daughter. And that was like such a powerful message in amongst all of this darkness. Guts is about to get dragged out down to hell as well, but then he tries to attack Griffith. And I'm just so interested by the whole Griffith and Guts thing. Like, I don't really know what to expect from it. I don't know what's actually already happened, apart from the flashback between them, or if it was even real, I don't know. But yeah, there's a very interesting relationship there. I'm very interested to find out more about it. Everything does go back to normal. They are out of this sort of hell dimension. And Theresia, she is back home, but she is absolutely mortified about what's just happened. And of course, it's like the first time she stepped outside of her room, and this happens. Like, I would want to stay in my room forever as well. But Guts is like very direct, and he tells her to just kill herself if you want to end everything. Like, she's devastated. She feels like she has nothing to live for, and Guts just tells her, yeah, just do that. It would be so easy, and you might end up going to heaven, or you might go to hell to see your mum and dad, who knows. And even Puck is like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now with this? But what happens right after that is that even though she's about to do it, she does end up falling. Like, the rock that she's on crumbles. She does end up falling. Guts saves her. Like, he does put out his sword and she grabs it. He gets her onto the thing. He saves her life. But in that moment, she realized that, oh, she doesn't really want to die. And Guts sees that in her reaction, and decides to help her and decides to save her. And I found that like so interesting because, again, Guts is the kind of guy who doesn't care about anyone else, really. He just cares about getting his goal. And he hasn't really shown that much emotion towards other people. But yeah, there was a totally different side to him in these moments, even though he did say beforehand, end it all right now, you'd probably be happier for it, to then him saving her and showing human emotion, because when he walks away, he's also got like tears in his eyes. So I found that really odd. Theresia does say as well, I'm going to kill you. When I'm older, I will kill you. And he's like, I'll be ready for you. So that'll be interesting to see if she comes back into it, Theresia. I will keep her in my mind, in the back of my mind, just in case she comes back. But I found that like such an interesting dynamic there between them two. Like, he just saved her life, but she does blame him for all of her troubles because everything that happened when he came, sort of thing. But yeah, it's an interesting look at it, and it was a good end chapter to this arc. It continued my feelings of desolateness, of hopelessness, and it just reinforces the idea that this place is so void of light, and I'm scared. I'm scared about what's coming next. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about what's going to happen next, but it is just so heavy. It's so heavy and so grim. So in this, there was an actual like Dark Souls reference. So did this inspire Dark Souls or Demon Souls or whatever it is? Like a drop of water you'll simply dissolve, becoming no more than another swell in an ocean of Dark Souls. So I'm wondering if maybe that inspired the name of Dark Souls, maybe? Because I'm just getting such Dark Souls, Bloodborne kind of vibes from it. Which obviously this came first. I believe this arc was written in the 80s or early 90s, something like that. It was a long time ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if this did inspire a lot of other things that came long after it. But all in all, I thought this was a really good arc. I'm so glad this won my manga tournament, and I'm glad I gave it more of a chance, and I got to read more of it and go chapter by chapter with it. I feel like once I've gotten over some of my confusion, I will most likely be able to analyze a bit better. I don't think I did a whole lot of analysis, but I think I was just taken back by the sheer darkness of this world and how I'm just so not used to it. Like, this is so out of my comfort zone, but at the same time, I'm eating it up. I'm really finding this to be so intriguing, and I cannot wait to read more. I will probably give this arc a 7 out of 10, and that rating might change the more I read a Berserk, but I think this was a really good establishing arc. It really did help to establish Guts as a character. It established the world. It established that no one's safe, and it established that there is just going to be constant violence, and it's definitely what I signed up for, so I'm really excited about more of this. I do know that the Golden Age arc, I think, is next, and it's quite a long arc, so I might split that video into 2. So if you know of which chapter I should probably enter for part 1, if you know like the best way of splitting the Golden Age arc, that would be fantastic. Please let me know. But I'm really excited to get to the next arc. I've heard fantastic things about the next arc, so hopefully I'll be reading more Berserk and starting the Golden Age arc in the next month. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave all the comments down below. Let me know what you think of Berserk. What do you think of the Black Swordsman arc? What did you think of my video? Did you agree with what I said? Did you disagree? Let me know everything down below. I'd love to chat to you. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting my channel. If you'd like to try my Patreon or follow me on any social media, then all the links are down in the description box. But yeah, I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye!